You're listening to Inside the Village, where all news is local and no topic is off limits.
So help me, Bob, it's bully in the alley. Hey, bully in the alley. So help me, Bob.
This is Inside the Village for the week of April 5th, 2023. I'm Scott Sexsmith alongside Michael Friscolanti, editor-in-chief here at Village Media. Thumbs up. I like that. It's like a Don Cherry.
I know. Like we're on air. Let's go.
Segue. Speaking of Don Cherry, a couple of weeks' time, Ron McLean on the show.
Oh, great. That's exciting.
To talk NHL playoffs. Bit of a sports theme today. We're going to talk baseball with Matt Betts, who is the host of the Canadian Baseball Network podcast as the Jays get set for their home opener next week. How you been? Good to see you.
Go Jays, go.
Go Jays. That pains you to say that.
It does. That was totally ironic, the way I said that.
Yeah.
And sarcastic.
And completely fake.
Yeah, totally fake.
I can see through the BS.
Yeah.
Derek can see through it.
I see that at press time, as they say, as we record this, they're 2-3. And Blue Jays Nation's going crazy. What's going on over here?
It's a crisis. I wouldn't plan the parade just yet.
Yep.
But we'll pick Matt's brain and see how he feels about the team.
Right. Awesome.
As they say, this just might be the year.
Yeah, clean slate.
Clean slate for everybody. All right, let's get right to it. The first word to Frisco. Bang-up job by the crack staff at the Trillium breaking the Mike Mantha story earlier this week.
Yeah, just another example of the great stuff we're doing every day here at Village. Mike Mantha is an MPP in Northern Ontario, and our team at the Trillium, Charlie Pinkerton in particular.
Easy for you to say.
Just noticed that Michael Mantha hadn't been on Queen's Park for a few months and started asking some questions. Turns out, as they first reported, he was on a personal leave of absence. And then they reported the next day that he had actually been removed from the NDP caucus, and so sitting as an independent pending an investigation into alleged workplace misconduct. So definitely they broke those two stories, and it's a story that now the rest of the media is following. So just some great digging there. And just within the last few minutes, our team in Elliott Lake has had an interview with Mr. Mantha and has posted a story with some comments from him. So that now they're advancing the story even more. So Village has kind of led the way on that story. It's been great work.
Tragic death involving a woman in an ambulance in the Wawa area.
Yeah, this is a sad story and a strange and unique story as well. Last year, a lady named Connie Halverson, she was in the back of an ambulance being transported, and the ambulance hit a snowplow. So there was a major accident, and she tragically was killed in the back of the ambulance. Her family has since, as we reported this week, sued today. Ken Armstrong reported that the family's launched a $1 million lawsuit in Sault Ste. Marie, claiming damages against the ambulance driver and the organization that operates paramedic services there. Just a sad story, and just to have to go through something like that and have that happen, and now seeing it get to court in this way. The driver's also facing charges under the Highway Traffic Act, so there's lots more to tell on this story, but definitely a tragic one.
It certainly is. All right, let's shift gears to a bit of a feel-good story. Jet Greaves from Cambridge, goalie for the Columbus Blue Jackets, making his NHL debut just last night, in fact, at Scotiabank Arena in Toronto.
Yeah, I love these stories too, and I loved what we did. So we obviously have a site in CambridgeToday, and a site in Barrie Today. And this young goaltender had connections to both. He was born and raised in Cambridge, played his minor hockey there, and then played for the Barrie Colts in Barrie in his OHL career. And both sites quickly put together a quick story after this came out on Twitter that he was going to make his debut. Both treated it a different way, focused on different angles, but it was just a great example. And this is kind of what we do every day, right? We dig deep in stories, but we also say, hey, there's this person from the community that's doing something great. We get that story up there, got a ton of attention on both sites, and I just love those kind of stories, right? I mean, There's always something sentimental about a young kid who's making his major league debut. I never get sick of watching that. If I'm watching sports, I never get sick of a 22-year-old goalie. And we're up in the Sioux, so if it's some kid from up here who's making his debut, it's a great thing.
And he's doing it in what you would call his hometown, right? His hometown team.
Yeah, imagine like you grew up in Cambridge, and then you played junior hockey in Barrie, so you're kind of Toronto's in between.
Absolutely.
And then there you are at what's it called now?
Scotiabank Arena. Yeah.
Making your debut at 22 years old.
Imagine that kid, growing up as a kid, playing road hockey with his buddies, as a goalie, as we all did with your favorite team's jersey on, his likely the Toronto Maple Leafs, and fast forward some, however many years later, and here he is starting for
And it's
Columbus.
amazing. And our readers in Barrie and our readers in Cambridge all knew that was happening because they saw it on our sites.
Very cool. And great stories being written by even greater people, and some in the network celebrating big anniversaries.
Oh, yeah. Let's do a shout out. We've had some, so we really try to acknowledge the anniversary we celebrate here. Dave Dawson, our great editor at Aurelia Matters, and Nathan Taylor, one of our senior deskers in Simcoe County, both celebrating 5-year anniversaries with Village. So congratulations to them. They're super amazing guys and fantastic journalists. And then the great David Helwig from Suit Today, right? I joked at our news meeting today that he's celebrating his 75th anniversary with Village. Of course, he celebrated his 20th, but David's a legend around here, a legend in the business, still doing amazing work, working hard every day. I don't think there's anybody better in local journalism who knows how to sift through hundreds of pages of city council agenda documents in advance of a meeting and pull out those 5 or 6 important stories.
Yeah.
I mean, he could teach a course on that, which I'm sure he has.
Yeah, and a great thing about Dave, it's one that you walk in first thing in the morning at 8 o'clock and he's here, and it's like, oh, Dave, did you just get in? No, I've been here all night.
Yeah, you never know, David. That's
You
the
never
beauty. And sometimes he's the master also of his stories showing up at 9:45 at night and right before the news desk goes home for the night, and they'll post it up for him. But it's always a great scoop, and he's always leading the way on that. And he's one of those, in our trade, there's always those journalists who you just leave alone because they know exactly what they're doing. They know what they have to chase after, and they bring the goods. And so you're not clocking their card. You're not checking on when they're punching in for work because they're doing their thing. And David was really humble when we gave him a little gift to celebrate his anniversary, and also just it was interesting. He said something about how we have to constantly evolve to get better as a company. We can't just keep doing things the same way. And the stereotype would be you'd think a veteran journalist like that would be stuck in his ways. We had to do things the same ways. But this guy's always innovating, always trying to do things different. And I give him a lot of credit for that. That's not easy to do.
Yep, absolutely. So happy anniversary to Nathan and to the two Daves. Okay, baseball season is upon us. We're a few games into the 2023 season, and we're going to talk the boys of summer with Matt Betts.
Can't wait.
All right, we'll do that when Inside the Village returns right after this.
Are you over 55 and considering a reverse mortgage? Receive the free guide that shows you how reverse mortgages really work. Reverse Mortgage Pros, providing trustworthy advice to help you make the right decision. To learn more, visit reversemortgagetruth.ca.
Welcome back to Inside the Village with Michael Friscolanti, Editor-in-Chief here at Village Media. I'm Scott Sexsmith. Inside the Village brought to you by Mitch Snedden at Reverse Mortgage Pros. For details, information, articles, and guides, you can log on to reversemortgagetruth.ca. It's baseball season. Best time. You know what? It's a great time of year to be a sports fan.
It is awesome.
Right? You've got the Raptors playing into the playoffs if they make it. NHL playoffs just around the corner. And, of course, the boys of summer are back.
And, of course, March Madness kind of kicks it off. You know it's coming when the madness begins, and then it's like, all right into spring training.
Yep.
And my favorite thing is when, the first day of spring training, the news organizations always show the guys walking with their cleats on the field as they're coming out of the clubhouse for the first practice.
Yeah.
Pitchers and catchers report. You know the spring's coming when that's on.
It's awesome, man. All right, let's talk some baseball with a man who knows it certainly better than me. Probably not as good as you, but it's close. Matt Betts, Cambridge Today reporter, but also heads up the Canadian Baseball Network podcast. Matt, good of you to join us to talk some ball today.
Yeah, I mean, anytime I can talk baseball in the middle of a work day, I'm going to take it. So I appreciate that.
That's my attitude as well, for sure.
Okay, so we should say right out of the gate that you've got a Jays fan here and a Tigers fan across the table from me. Where does your allegiance lie, Matt?
Yeah, it's going to be Toronto. Since I was born the year they won their first World Series, so I guess you could say I was born into it.
All right, Derek, any team?
Blue Jays.
Blue Jays. All right,
so
I'm 3-1.
I just realized how much older we are too. Matt's a young guy. You and I are pretty old. He's born the year they won the World. Which World Series? The first one?
92. Yeah.
Yeah. So you watched Joe Carter when you were 1?
Yeah, remember it fondly.
So 92 would have been the
Braves.
Braves, right?
Yeah,
Timlin
Braves,
to who was it? Was Carter on first?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes.
Good.
And then Carter hits the
good memory.
The home run.
Well, and Jays fans have been living in that dream for 30 years, right? That they keep talking about Joe Carter's home run and all this stuff, right? They're begging for that to turn a page and kind of a new chapter.
When did the Tigers last win?
1984. So
All
it's
right.
been even longer.
Okay.
But we,
All right.
I always say, you know, fans can claim championships for their team if they were alive. I don't like when people do it, you know, we won in the 70s. You won a lot in the 70s. Okay.
Exactly.
I was alive for both. So I'm 2 World Series championships in my lifetime.
There you go. So is this the year they could have another one? How good are they looking?
Yeah, I think so. You know, if you go on, you know, social media, you might think otherwise 5 games in, but yeah, I think it's a more complete lineup this year. They obviously went a little bit different direction. No Gurriel, no Hernandez, bringing guys like Varsho. So it's that Kiermaier. So they've kind of focused on run prevention, especially in the outfield. Moving Springer to right certainly helps and will help hopefully keep him healthy.
No kidding.
But yeah, I think it's a good team, but the American League East is always a struggle.
and we're only five games or so in here, Matt, but Varsho's looking like a pretty good pickup.
Yeah, I mean, home run last night to the opposite field. I think I saw that it was his first home run to the opposite field. Obviously a fairly young player still, but can play defense, threw out a runner last night, so it's going to be interesting to watch how he integrates into the lineup.
And pitching always seems to be an issue with the Jays, certainly starting pitching. How's it looking this year?
Yeah, at the top it looks really good. I think Gausman and Manoah are obviously going to kind of lead the way. Then you get down to Bassett, obviously tough start in St. Louis there, but another good arm, solid number 3 guy. I don't know what's going on with Barrios. I still believe in him. I think he's still the guy that they traded for. Hopefully they can get that sorted out. And then Kikuchi last night looked really good. So coming off a bad year, and if he can bounce back, that's going to do wonders for the rotation. I wouldn't be surprised if they look to add near the deadline, depending on how Barrios and Kikuchi play out. But it's worth keeping an eye on for sure.
Yeah, and Kikuchi, I mean, last year, not a great year, but you're right. Last night he looked fantastic. Not the Kikuchi that we're used to seeing.
Yeah, and you could tell. I mean, his last out, I think he struck out. I can't remember who it was, but jumped off the mound with a fist bump, and you could tell he was excited, and that meant a lot to him. Getting off to a good start can do wonders for the confidence.
So you can tell a little. I pay attention to the Blue Jays. Before we got on, I just asked you why they're not opening at home. They have a dome stadium, and they're the first 28 games or something are on the road. Why aren't they at home yet?
The Rogers Center renovations, they're doing a lot of things to that outfield kind of district, I guess you can call it. There's a new rooftop patio, it looks like. So a lot of different ways for fans to, get into the game and have a good time. It's probably needed. I mean, you look at Rogers Center, it's not one of the highly rated ballparks in the big leagues. But they're doing their best, and I don't know, if there's ever any plans for a new stadium, but they're doing the best to make the one that they have, appealing to fans.
Yeah, it's kind of part of that push too. That we've heard a lot about how trying to make the game better for fans. I think guys like you and I who just are obsessed with this game and love baseball, I was fine with it the way it was, but I keep hearing commercials every time I listen to the games on the radio about new rule, bigger bases, pitch clock, all these things, and rooftop patios, trying to make the game more appealing to quote unquote younger folks. What do you think of some of these rule changes, Matt?
I'm a little bit of a mix between new school and old school. The pitch clock, I think there's some adjustments that could be made to it. I think it's a good thing, though. I mean, you look at, do you want to watch a game between maybe the Tigers and the Jays, but the Jays and Kansas City in the middle of June that's 4.5 hours long or 4 hours long?
Yeah.
Probably not. I'd like to see them get rid of it in the 9th inning, maybe extra innings. Playoffs, get rid of it. I could watch a playoff baseball game for 6 hours.
100%.
That's good.
Yeah.
But I think it's a good thing. Bigger bases, you see early on, stolen bases are up. You eliminate the shift. I believe base hits are also up. Small sample size, but you saw in the minor leagues last year that these things kind of trended out over the course of the year. So I think it's making the game more interesting, like you said, for the casual fans. Hardcore ones like us, we're going to watch regardless. But I'm not opposed to most of the new rules, despite what some people think.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I could watch them take 30 seconds to throw a pitch, but you're right. Most people don't want to wait that long. And I was torn about the pitch clock too. And I've watched a couple games, and it has picked up the pace. And a lot of that stuff where the batters are leaving the batter's box, fixing their gloves and all this stuff every pitch, it was getting to be a bit much. So I can see that will help bring the pace of the game up a bit more. I think that's a good thing.
And I just don't. Yeah, you just cut out some of that dead time, which is exactly what they wanted. I think I saw Sandy Alcantara threw a complete game in an hour and 57 minutes or something yesterday.
Yeah.
So that's maybe a little too quick for my liking. But, that 2 hour, 45 minute time, I think that's about right. You watch a hockey game, it's 2 hours, 2.5 hours. It kind of brings it in line with other sports, especially during such a long regular season. like I said, in the playoffs, I'll sit there all night and watch. I'll sit there all night in the regular season too. So maybe I'm not a good example. But
is that accurate though? Have they not made it clear that this is not? Is that pitch clock still going to be around in the playoffs? Is that for sure?
I believe so.
Yeah, because I think that's a terrible idea. I don't like that idea either.
Now you're bringing it into question. You have to look that up. But I'm pretty sure it's going to be. Yeah, hopefully not. Yeah, to be honest,
I don't think anyone needs the game sped up in October. I mean, that's the most beautiful thing in the world is playoff baseball. I know everyone says, "Well, the Yankees and Red Sox play 5-6 hour games when they're in the playoffs," but there's nothing like watching that. I love that.
Yeah, and just speaking of the Red Sox and Yankees, I love the new schedule. A little bit more balanced. You play every team every year. You alternate home and road as far as the National League and American League. But yeah, facing the Yankees and Red Sox 19 times a year, the Rays 19 times a year, that's just a gauntlet to run for the Jays. I'm happy to see, and I like watching the National League team. So it mixes it up and makes it something new.
Matt, we're only 5 games in, but who do you like in the East? And if you had a crystal ball, what does late August, September look like in your mind?
Yeah, it's funny. I would say I like the Yankees still. Some pitching. They're running into some injury issues, but I think in the long run, over the 6 months, they're going to be pretty good. The Jays will be right there. The Rays are the Rays. They seem to just pump out pitching that gets the job done. Boston, I think, is going to be a little bit better than what people think. There's some talent on that roster, and Baltimore's still building on a lot of top prospects, so they're a fun team to watch. But so a long answer. To shorten my answer, I'd say the Jays in the East. I know you might not agree with that, Frisco, but I'll take the Jays in the East. Jays and Yankees atop the East.
I like that. Matt, let's talk about Bo Bichette for a sec. Coming off a strong year, signed a big fat deal. Do you see that progressing into this season in terms of his play?
Yeah, I think they kind of eliminated his arbitration years, and kind of bought him out through that period. So he's kind of the kind of character that they want for this team. They got rid of the home run jacket. They got rid of some of the I don't want to call it fun in the dugout, but Bichette's a lot more serious of a player. So yeah, I'm excited to see him. He could be one of the better hitters in the league, to be honest with you.
Yeah, you know what's interesting? Back when I was a magazine writer, I had the fortune of doing a big profile on Alex Anthopoulos when he was the GM, and I spent a few days with him down in Dunedin. And the one thing that resonated with what he talked about was how if they could go back in time, they would have called the Toronto Blue Jays the Canada Blue Jays or something like that. Because it's almost like the only comparison are the Raptors when they went to the finals and won the finals, and the whole country was just overwhelmed, like just so involved in what was going on with the Raptors. That would not happen with, like, say, the Toronto Maple Leafs. If they won the Cup, the whole country wouldn't be thrilled to do it.
No.
Can you talk about that, Matt? It's amazing, like how many people in Saskatchewan and British Columbia are just tuned into Sportsnet every night watching the Blue Jays.
Yeah, the Raptors is a great example. I think when you talk about the Blue Jays, you even hear the players talk about it. They'll be interviewed in various places talking about playing in Toronto. It can be tough sometimes because of the way the money works, but once they get here, they usually fall in love with the place. You watch them play in Seattle. You see all the people from BC go down. Minneapolis, when they play Minnesota, same thing. So it really is Canada's team, is kind of corny as that can be, but yeah, the fan support goes right coast to coast, and it's special to play here for a lot of these guys, I think.
And a different kind of pressure, right? Because you're not just representing a city, you're representing an entire country. And I don't know if there's any other professional sport franchise that has that in any league, in any sport.
I can't think of one.
No.
Yeah, you want to talk? Yeah, pressure for sure. You can get criticized from somebody Victoria, British Columbia, or Sydney, Nova Scotia. So I guess there's a lot more. There's 39 million people that are questioning your every move. So yeah, it can be interesting. But I think it seems like a lot of guys love it. So you just kind of take it and run with it. If they ever get a chance, to play in the World Series again, which I hope they do soon, it's going to be exciting. Frisco, I see you laughing.
No, look. I'm going to be.
It
honest.
has been since '93.
I'm going to be honest. I am not a Blue Jays fan. Not in the least. Not 1 ounce of me. I'm a diehard Detroit Tigers fan since I was 8 years old. I'll tell you the quick version of the story. My dad went to Detroit when I was 8 for a conference. Came home with 2 Tigers pennants and a poster with Alan Trammell and Lou Whitaker and Kirk Gibson and those guys. I loved baseball when I was a kid, and that became my team at that moment. And that's it. It's been in my heart and soul forever. And so if the Blue Jays don't do well, I'm totally fine with that. And on in that vein is that I often, because I grew up in Hamilton and I'd listen to the Toronto call-in shows, I always kind of got a kick out of Toronto baseball fans because they would call these shows with the most ludicrous questions as if they're from a different planet. They don't know what they're talking about. In your role with your podcast, Matt, do you get some interesting feedback from Blue Jays fans?
Yeah, so I'm always on Twitter and following all the way from grassroots baseball all the way up to the big leagues. So you would think the sky is falling when they started 1 and 3. I just beg that people calm down. 162 games is a long time, but yeah, it's pretty. I love the passion, but sometimes it's like, oh, that's a head scratcher of a comment for sure.
Do you engage them all?
Sometimes, yeah, I try to. Some of the completely out of left field ones I just leave alone.
Pardon the pun.
yeah, exactly. It's just you could be up all night and you're lose sleep. But the positive ones and even the constructive ones, yeah, I'll try and engage with them.
I remember growing up in Toronto as a kid, 9, 10, 11 years old, and you could go to the Dominion grocery store. Matt, you're probably too young to remember this, but you could buy a Blue Jays ticket at Dominion for $2, and that would get you entry into Exhibition Stadium and a grandstand seat. $2.
Old Exhibition Stadium, that was a place to watch a ball game there.
Great place.
That was something. But even the old the Sky Dome, as they once called it, I remember being a kid and going in there when they were winning, like in the early 90s. They would have 55,000 people in there, and it was deafening when they would get a base hit and score a run. Yeah. It was wild. And, I know we've seen that's returned, like in the Batista era when they were going to the playoffs in 2015. That had come back, right? That passion for the Jays had been there. And I do think, as much as I'm not a fan of the Blue Jays, I think that's clearly they're going to be the buzz. If they're competitive this year, as everyone expects them to be, it will be the focus of the summer for Canadian sports fans for sure.
No question. And you talk about when it was Sky Dome, and of course Ted Rogers, who saved the team because being the big patriot that he was, didn't want to see it leave Canada. Do you recall what he paid for the Sky Dome?
I vaguely remember it was like $25 million.
$25 million for that. Can you imagine the price of that real estate today?
It's crazy, right?
Greatest real estate deal ever.
Yeah, that is just wild.
Yeah,
that's wild.
I would think that Rogers got a pretty good return.
There's now a statue of Ted there when you go down to the ballpark.
Yep, absolutely.
Crazy.
Deservedly so. All right, Matt, for those who don't know, name of your podcast again and where people can download or subscribe.
Yeah, so it's the Canadian Baseball Network podcast, which is also a website, a subscription website. You can find the podcast on YouTube or anywhere that you find your podcast, Apple, Spotify, all those good platforms.
All right, beautiful. CambridgeToday reporter extraordinaire and host of the Canadian Baseball Network podcast, Matt Betts. Matt, have a great season. Go Jays, go, and thanks for doing this today.
Thanks so much.
Reporters, editors, and journalists who go the extra mile to get the story and get it right. Go behind the scenes with those who cover the stories that matter most to you and your community. Look for it in the Village Features section of your favorite Village Media website across Ontario.
Back to wrap on Inside the Village, brought to you by Mitch Snedden, Reverse Mortgage Pros. For articles, information, guides, anything that you need to know about reverse mortgages, log on to reversemortgagetruth.ca. Reach out to Mitch, and he will hook you up. All right, it's exciting. Baseball. Can't wait.
I've been enjoying it. We're 5 games in. I admit I've always got my app on and I'm watching the games on my phone as I'm doing other things. The Tigers, to be fair, are not picked to do very well this year, probably close to last. But, they're playing the Astros this week. They've won 2 in a row, and you're thinking that, hey, maybe they'll prove everybody wrong. It's the best game in the world.
You know what? It really, and I can't get over how long the season is. I mean, you look at hockey that's, 80, 82 games. Mm-hmm. These guys are playing 162 games plus playoffs. Yeah, it's like every day they're playing.
Every day. They're lucky to have a couple days off a month, right? But that's the beautiful thing about baseball. Like Jimmy Leland, the old Tigers manager, used to say, like, you can't chew yesterday's breakfast. If you get shut out or you blow a save the night before, you go to bed, you come right back the next day to the ballpark, and you just win that game. You don't have to stew about it for a week till the next game, right? You can't chew yesterday's breakfast.
You can't.
I try to tell my kids that. They don't always listen.
It's like us. If we have a bad show, forget about it. We're back next week.
Yeah, what do you mean if we have a bad show?
And we will be, the good Lord willing, back next week. ITV at villagemedia.ca. If you want to reach out to Derek Frisco or myself, you can catch all episodes wherever you get your favorite podcasts across the Village Media Network or at insidethevillage.ca. For Derek Turner, executive producer of the show, Michael Friscolanti, editor-in-chief here at Village Media, I'm Scott Sexsmith. We'll talk to you next week.
You've been listening to Inside the Village.
Frisco and Scott's Wardrobe, provided in part by Moores, Sault Ste. Marie.